In 1894, a young Kiowa woman was living the clash of two worlds. The pressure of colonization and new rules pressed into her daily life, while clan memories, rights, and the ethics handed down by her ancestors called for continuity. Between change and resistance, she searched for a path that would preserve her people's voice without ignoring the reality around her. In the 1880s, Marcia Pascal appears, a woman of mixed origins. Half of her lineage came from the Cherokee people. The daughter of George Pascal, a high-ranking U.S. Army officer, she went through a decade of tension and turning points. Between tradition and progress, her story mirrors the clash of worlds that was redefining the country, and it left subtle but lasting marks. Recorded in the 1880s, the photograph shows a woman from the Taos Pueblo people. As you look at her, the viewer's gaze crosses time and reaches a daily life that endures. Every detail, the fabric, the adornments, the bearing, the gesture, invites a calm look and a link between form and history. In this way, the image becomes direct access to the life and culture she embodies. In 1900, Carl Everton Moon began a photographic journey to document Native American communities in their own territories. Driven by the desire to preserve traditions and ways of life, he sought to capture everyday scenes and rituals before Western expansion changed those environments. His images form a direct testimony of cultures and transformation. In the photograph known as Spirit of the Corn, we see a woman from the Pueblo community, possibly in New Mexico, in 1904. The framing draws the eye to corn as an axis of faith, sustenance, and ritual. Every detail suggests the connection that organizes seasons, celebrations, and stories, making visible the memory that moves the people to this day. A woman of the Spokane Nation faces the camera in 1897. Frank LaRoche's record, More Than a Portrait, suggests routine, bonds, and shared knowledge. By observing her adornments and posture, we get clues to daily life and networks of care. In this way, the photograph opens a passage. It brings the present closer to indigenous stories that persist. In 1899, photographer Frank Reinhardt recorded Hattie Tom, a woman of the Chiricahua Apache Nation. In the portrait, her steady gaze and adornments reveal history, belonging, and resistance. The composition invites us to notice details of her face, clothing, and posture, letting the strength of a life and a people show before the lens, a preserved memory. In 1895, a photograph captured a young woman of the Hopi Nation. As we linger on this portrait, we notice details of her clothing and the way she presents herself, signs of a tradition that spans generations. The photographer's eye leads attention to her face, where gesture and posture reveal identity and history in silence. It invites us to look at what time has kept. In 1886, the stage of popular culture features Lizzie Longwolf, an artist who became a key figure in Buffalo Bill's show. Her performance opens a window onto the world of major traveling productions, where bravery and skill shaped narratives and drew crowds, showing how entertainment helped tell the story of that time. Elsie Vance Chestuin appears as a bridge to Chiricahua memory. Her name opens the door to a path intertwined with the life of this indigenous community, and helps us understand how an identity was formed. Among the many Apache branches, the Chiricahua were marked by resistance and the ability to keep their own path cohesive. This photograph, taken in 1895, records a young woman from Taos Pueblo in New Mexico. Between adobe walls and desert shadows, her simple gesture reveals routines that sustain the village. As we observe her, we cross time and territory. Everyday life becomes a bridge to understand rituals, work, and how the community preserves ways of life and collective memory. A photograph takes us to First Mesa in Arizona. In it, Hopi girls from Sikomovi pose before Frederick Monson's camera in the early 20th century. The image captures the people's daily life and reveals details of ceremonial attire, signaling ways of life, knowledge, and identities that span generations. Among rocks and plateaus, the setting amplifies the meaning of the record. In the image, we return to Isleta Pueblo and find three women, Carlotta Chiwiwi and her daughters Maria and Felicita Tawura. The record made by Poli in the early 20th century preserves a domestic and historical moment. As we face it, we open a window onto their daily lives and the time around them. The scene invites reflection on presence and continuity. This 1878 photograph shows a Cheyenne woman at Fort Keogh in the wide lands of Montana. The record captures a moment that links person and territory, inviting a look at the Cheyenne presence in that period. By observing its details, we open a window to understand journeys, encounters, and tensions that marked the people's life in the region. Photographed by Carl Wernz in the early 20th century, the scene in Hopi, Arizona, brings us close to two young Hopi women at a window. The austere, precise framing catches the moment when they lean their bodies and their gaze, looking outside for signs of a world that calls to them and, for a moment, fits entirely in the silence of the frame. In Amy and Carrie Kiowa, George A. Addison in 1895 portrays two young women within the Kiowa landscape. The composition guides us from the eyes to the hands, revealing gestures and textures that build presence. Every element speaks with the surroundings, and the precision of the line sustains the atmosphere, allowing the scene to breathe and the figures to gain body and a quiet voice. In a photograph from 1886, Julie Nelson appears. The portrait, sharp in the details of the outfit and its drape, places us in the everyday life of that time. The framing highlights her posture and the way she faces the lens. As we follow the outline of her face and hands, we notice signs of pause and thought, as if the camera gathered a moment when memory and desire cross. Facing a photograph dated 1900, we see a young Hopi woman on her wedding day. She poses serenely while the community prepares the rite that joins family, memory, and future. The garments, of fabric and beads, tell her story. Every detail marks belonging and commitment. The lens captures not only the ceremony, but the meaning that sustains it. The 1885 photo shows a young woman identified as Comanche. The portrait invites an unhurried look. From the contours of her face to the pieces of clothing, each element suggests practices and values of her people. By also observing the setting around her, we form a living picture of Comanche everyday life and of how tradition and environment intertwine. A record that challenges a rushed reading. Around the start of the 20th century, a photograph records Alice. Her tribal origin isn't certain. Some point to Cayuse, Walla Walla, or Umatilla. As we observe the portrait, face, adornments, and setting form a map of clues. Every detail suggests ways of life, bonds, and stories that may indicate which people she belonged to. Without closing off answers, it opens paths of memory. In the 1880s, a group of young Comanche women gained visibility and redefined spaces within their own community. Amid rituals, exchanges, and movements, they organized knowledge, led tasks, and sustained bonds that kept life in motion. Their presence coordinated daily life and preserved traditions, stitching the future to the people's legacy. Around 1905, Lariqui Yated, daughter of the Laguna Pueblo leader, was recorded in a photograph wearing Kawake attire with a belt and bead necklaces. The image preserves a rite of belonging. The community lives in the semi-arid center west of New Mexico, in an area near Albuquerque where tradition and territory still walk together today. A young Kiowa woman faces the camera in 1892. The image, simple and direct, opens a window onto her community's daily life. From her clothing to the details of her face, clues of belonging and social roles emerge. By following these signs, we understand ways of living, exchanges, and values that span generations, and that the photograph, in silence, preserves. In the 20th century, a photograph shows a young indigenous woman from the United States wearing her community's clothing. The scene, simple and direct, opens a window onto a time when traditions, language, and ways of living resisted rapid change. As we look, we notice not only the attire, but a trace of belonging and memory that spans generations. In 1886, a scene fixes a decisive moment. Isabel Perico Njadi, Chiricahua Apache prisoner of war, is detained and taken into captivity. The framing takes us to the shock of the encounter, the silence afterward, and the memory that persists. In that frame, history condenses and reveals the weight of a chapter that still echoes beyond the image. In 1908, photographer Roland Reed recorded the portrait of an Ojibwe woman. The scene, simple and direct, invites an unhurried look. Clothing, posture, and setting suggest the community's ways of life and beliefs. Crossing the distance of time, the photograph opens a passage to understand how that culture affirmed itself in everyday life. The 1899 photograph by Frank Reinhardt presents Hattie Tom, an Apache woman. By placing us before her gaze and her adornments, the image opens a window onto the end of the 19th century and suggests aspects of belonging and presence. More than a portrait, it works as an invitation to think about how visual representation preserves memories and brings distant times closer.
In the first decades of the 20th century on Blackfeet lands, it was common to see women fully active. They sustained community life, leading rites, passing knowledge to the young, and handling the village's daily life, making sure the group's traditions, bonds, and needs stayed strong. In 1890, in a Taos Pueblo village, a mother rocks her child. In the heart of New Mexico, the people built ancestral homes and keep a living heritage. This intimate gesture opens a window into the rituals, routines, and ties that sustain the community, revealing a daily life woven by tradition at that time. In 1895, a young Sioux walks beside the horse that has been with him since childhood. Among his people, the animal is more than transport. It symbolizes respect, honor, and status. As they move forward, the end of the 19th century echoes, when expulsions and conflicts forced many indigenous communities to relocate. Before we go on, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. This tells YouTube the content matters and helps it reach more people. In 1895, on the plains of South Dakota, a young Sioux woman sought shelter at the Rosebud Reservation. Her people were facing hard times. The expansion of the United States had displaced countless indigenous communities, pulling them from ancestral lands and confining them to areas marked out by the state. In the 19th century, Little Head stood out among the Crow. In 1883, as indigenous nations faced pressure from settlers and the U.S. government, he stepped to the front. He stitched together alliances, coordinated leadership, and pushed forward the defense of rights and territories, keeping his people's autonomy alive in a time of upheaval. In 1905, at the Colville Indian Reservation in Washington, a photograph captures an everyday moment. 2 children, a baby, and a slightly older girl. She leans in, watches over, and plays with the little one. The scene reveals bonds of care, common in families where older siblings help look after the younger ones. In 1907, 2 young Isleta Tiwa women cross the landscape carrying bundles of firewood. They follow an old method, balancing the load on their heads and walking upright. Gravity helps, the body aligns, the weight distributes. That way, the trip goes farther, hands stay free, and the community gets the day's fire. In 1875, 4 brothers of the Pawnee Nation formed the Kilcahoct Group. Music then was a bridge between peoples and a stage for identity. With traditional instruments, they created rhythms and songs that preserved stories, celebrated the past, and kept the traditions inherited from their ancestors alive. In 1908, Pretty Hawk was emerging as a leader among the Sioux of North Dakota. At the forefront of key decisions, he mapped out paths for the community and talked with other groups and chiefs. His journey reveals the political threads and challenges the Sioux faced in the early 20th century, in a context of negotiations and decisive choices. In 1904, a photograph shows young Inuit hugging puppies against the backdrop of their homeland. It offers a glimpse of daily life in the early 20th century, when community life was intertwined with working alongside animals. The scene shows affection, partnership, and the role these companions played in survival in the Arctic. In 1867, Fat Bear, Big Head, and Dull Knife stood out in the leadership of the Northern Cheyenne. The people lived mainly on the central northern U.S. plains, moving with the seasons. Hunting guided their livelihood, while rituals and ceremonies kept collective memory and the sense of belonging alive. Before we go on, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. This tells YouTube the content matters and helps it reach more people. In 1908, Bird Rattle emerged as a key figure among the Piegan. a people of the Blackfoot Confederacy who lived on the vast plains between the northern United States and southern Canada. In that setting, the community kept rituals, stories, and customs alive, passing them down from generation to generation, weaving continuity and identity. In the early 20th century, an Inuit woman emerged as a guardian of life in her community. Pregnant, she carried in her body the continuity of the people. On her back, a little one nestled close, a sign of care that spans generations, keeping children near, protected, learning from the warmth of family amid the frozen landscape. In 1899, Misaw rose to prominence among the Shoshone, a people who lived in the western United States. Known for skill in hunting, fishing, and gathering, they kept alive, through the voices of elders, a history made of stories and rituals that linked each generation to its origins. It was in this setting that his name gained strength. Early 20th century in Arizona. A Hopi mother walks beside her daughter. Their steps follow the very story of their people. In the village among adobe homes, life pulses with rites and festivals, guarded in everyday gestures. Each piece of knowledge crosses generations, weaving continuity and belonging. In the early 20th century in Montana, a photo shows Chief Plenty Coups, a Crow leader, beside a young person. Respected among his own, he appears as a teacher in action, a moment that hints at the passing of knowledge, a dialogue that links generations and keeps the tribe's memory alive. Kes Ka-Yo, remembered as Bob Tail and also as Bob Small, was a member of the Cree Nation. His name appears in records from 1906. Among the Cree, as in so many indigenous peoples, history is passed on through rituals, stories, and memories that unite generations and shape each person's place in the community, then and now. In 1871, a Comanche warrior was captured in a photograph, wearing the dress of his people and posing with resolve. The image captures a turning point. Indigenous peoples faced pressure, loss of territory, and challenges to their practices, fighting to keep the bonds and narratives that sustained the community. In 1904, in the village of Laguna Pueblo, New Mexico, a woman's name was recorded, Ki-Ya Tadi. She also appeared as Lata Atsi. The presence of two names suggests layers of meaning in her path and shows how the community expressed identity and memory at that time. This record echoes the richness of local culture. In 1883, a member of the Crow tribe stood out as a healer and spiritual guide. Blending healing practices with sacred rituals, he became a reference point for knowledge and care, guiding the community in times of uncertainty. His legacy preserved traditional medicine and strengthened the people's identity for generations. Before we go on, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. This tells YouTube the content matters and helps it reach more people. In the first years of the 20th century, Jack Red Cloud took on a leadership role among the Sioux. In 1904, he was at the height of his influence and led decisions that affected the whole group. During this period, he forged agreements, mediated conflicts, and launched initiatives focused on protection, the community's progress, and cultural affirmation. At the start of the 20th century, across the vast landscapes of the U.S. Southwest, a Navajo man walks through his ancestral land. Among dunes, mesas, and seasonal rivers, his presence evokes stories passed down through generations and the crafts that shape identity and livelihood, connecting memory, land, and community. In 1891, at the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, three voices led the Sioux people: Two Strike, Crow Dog, and High Hawk. As chiefs, they gathered councils, weighed conflicts, and set courses. Between outside pressures and internal challenges, they chose paths to ensure the village's survival, cohesion, and future. As U.S. expansion advanced, public policies redrew borders and customs. In the photo, two young Cheyenne face the new times. They symbolize a people who, amid pressure and choices, look for ways to keep passing on language, rights, and memory without losing their connection to their origins. Around 1861 in Montana, there's a record of Pretty Horse, a woman of the Sioux Nation, identified as the daughter of White Bull. Though brief, this note shows how kinship ties organized collective life, offering a glimpse of the family structure that sustained the community at that time. In 1923, in Havre, Montana, a portrait captured an intimate moment in the family of Jim Denny, of the Cree people. Beside him is Maggie, daughter of Little Bear. Between them, the children complete the scene. William, still a boy, and Florence, already older. The photo preserves a simple moment full of history. In 1912, a photograph taken on the Hopi Reservation recorded a striking rite. Upon reaching puberty, young women had their hair shaped into side whirls that resembled the squash blossom. The hairstyle served as a public announcement. It showed the young woman was single and not yet married. In 1926, Jessie Jim of the Chelan tribe gained national attention when she was named an honorary member of the Blackfeet Nation in Montana. The tribute came after she won the title of American Princess II in the contest promoted by the National Indian Congress in Spokane, Washington. We've reached the end of our video. Subscribe to our channel and leave a comment if you liked the content. See you next time.